Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Franchise Hockey Manager 9 playthrough of the Chicago Blackhawks. We are about a month into the 2024 to 2025 season. The Blackhawks have been respectable, 5-4-1 record as we try to defend the Stanley Cup championship. Hopefully the team will get better as they spend more time together. We are integrating a number of key players, some of whom were picked up via free agency, some of whom were picked up via trade, and 3 of whom were recently picked up on the waiver wire during the month of October. So a lot of new additions to the Blackhawks roster, and the hope is that with more time playing together, we can play even better over the months of November and December and then into next year than they have in their first 10 games together this season, kind of trying to figure out how to play with one another. And ownership is satisfied with our performance over the first month of the season. Fans are thrilled with the team. Some good news is that our previous clique broke up. Bad news, a new clique has formed, so that is interesting. We did, you may remember at the end of our last episode, crank up our investment in team morale a notch, which we hoped would help with team harmony, and perhaps it did help in terms of breaking up that first clique, but now we've got a new clique formed, so hopefully it won't cause too many problems. This one's a little more interesting. The last one was Patrick Kane, our starting goalie Mackenzie Blackwood, and then left winger Ross Colton, I believe. Yeah, so those were the 3 guys who were still in that clique. So 3 pretty important players. This is more some of the young guys. I guess it's probably kind of led by Jared Anderson Dolan, who's been up the longest, but Dylan Holloway just joined us via the waiver wire. Colton Dock is a rookie making his debut this year that was drafted by the Blackhawks several seasons ago, and Alec Regula is kind of a 6th or 7th defender on our team who is also a pretty young player. So we have a clique of youngsters on the Blackhawks. And the month of November has gotten off to a brutal start for the Blackhawks with 5 consecutive losses. Most recently, the worst one of them all, getting shut out 6-0 by the Devils. You can see with the fact that we don't have a single home game for the month of November, a very funky scheduling quirk. Guess there must be something big going on in Chicago or at the United Center in November of 2024, because we had 4 home games at the end of October, and now we are on the road for the entire month. December kind of an even split with home and away games. If we can make it into January, start having more home games than away games over the final few months of the season, which will hopefully help us if we are still in the playoff hunt at that point. But right now, with 5 consecutive losses, we've gone from 5-4-1 to 5-9-1, and there's only a handful of teams in all of the NHL, not even a handful, that have fewer points than our 11. And finally, mercifully, the Blackhawks got a win 5-4 in Buffalo. We ended up starting Skarek in goal just to change things up, because we were getting dangerously close to going 0 for the month of November. You can see at this point that we started the month with 8 consecutive losses on the road before finally getting that win at Buffalo. Hopefully we can finish off this month-long road trip with, I'd say at a minimum, picking up 3 points over these last 3 games. That's not particularly ambitious, especially for the defending champions, but the way we've been playing, we've just got to take points any time we can get them. Our 13 points are are the third worst in all of hockey, behind only the Canadiens and the Senators, who have 12 each. So it has been a very unimpressive beginning to this title defense by the Blackhawks. And like I said, I don't want to put too much emphasis on it, given that the vast majority of games that we played this year, 15 of the 19 games that we played were on the road. So hopefully when we do get back to the United Center, we'll be able to enjoy some home cooking, so to speak. But it's been shocking, given the progress that I felt we made in the off season, that the team has been this bad almost a quarter of a way through the season. And we did get a 6-5 win against Nashville to kind of hopefully stop the bleeding, because our job security was plunging with a couple of 5-game losing streaks, but we have won 2 in a row at this point, which is the good news. The bad news is that Patrick Kane is injured, probably going to be out about 10 days with a shoulder strain, and he did it coming off of a big game. Had 5 assists in that 6-5 win against Nashville, and 4 of them were to Dylan Larkin. So pretty impressive performances from both of those players. And the Blackhawks did play a little better, winning 3 games in a row before dropping the last game of the long road trip and the last game of the month of November to the Sharks. So now going to hopefully have some more home games, obviously a lot more home games than away games over the remainder of the season. Still actually have 2 games left on the road trip. I misspoke a little bit, but then hopefully can start doing some home cooking, as we'll be home a lot during the month of December. And we're going to need to do well, because although we've been playing a little better lately, our 17 points is still one of the 4 lowest numbers in all of hockey. So again, not the type of performance that we'd like to have when starting a title defense, but still too early to panic, but definitely need to come out of the month of December with a record that's much closer to 500 than it is today. And I guess we got modestly good news from ownership. They're still satisfied with our performance despite the horrible November. The fans are no longer thrilled with us, but still very pleased. So, as I said, hopefully the team will start playing better in the month of December, when we get to do a lot more home cooking. We're also dealing with a long suspension for Taylor Radish. He's still out another 5 games. It was a 7-game suspension. So between that and the fact that we did put Kane on the injured list, definitely a little weaker. We brought up Reichel. He's played 2 games and has scored a goal for us. Probably not going to be up for the long term, although Lupin right now, we don't seem to think that either him or Holloway are trending in the right direction as far as their ability, at least in terms of the Stars. So definitely we'll have some interesting decisions to make as to what this roster looks like when Mr. Kane is ready to come off of the IL, which hopefully he'll only miss 1 more game. Worst case scenario, he's probably back for the first home game in Chicago in over a month. And a rough season is potentially getting worse. Philip Hronik, torn back muscle that's going to keep him out indefinitely. He's willing to play through it, but I just don't see any purpose in that. He's not going to be at 100%, and in the event that we are fortunate enough to make the playoffs this year, would love it to have him available for if and when that happens. Certainly we're going to have to play much better to get there, and it's going to be much less likely with him being out, but I don't think that that's something on December 9th that we're going to try to force him to play through for the entire season. So another hit to the team. Definitely weakens the defense a bit to be losing him, but those are the breaks, and we're going to have to figure out how to make this work. We do have the advantage of having a lot more home games now, and hopefully we can start playing better. Korchinski has been decent in the ECHL. Certainly he's banged up now, so we're not going to bring him up. But I am going to promote him. I don't want to promote him to Chicago. I want to promote him to the AHL. And he could be a player who we could bring up not too long from now, potentially. I guess Kaiser is an option. Another guy that's only been playing in the ECHL, though, but we're going to promote him to Rockford also, because odds are we're going to need some of these players sooner rather than later. Definitely have some decisions to make with some of these younger guys. And with the injury, we're going to bring up Nolan Allen, 21-year-old. Only has 21 games in the AHL under his belt at this point. But he's going to be our 7th defenseman. Might as well get him a little bit of action with the NHL team. I'm guessing, having him and Reichel on board, neither of those guys are quite at the right level as far as their training. So definitely not optimal to have those two guys with the team. Actually, we may... Reichel's been -5, although he does have that goal scored. So we're going to send him back to the AHL, hopefully more of the right level for him as far as his development. And we'll bring up Danny O'Regan, the versatile forward that we picked up when we were clearing space on our roster to be able to make that... waiver claim that we made for the very highly paid Quinn Hughes. So we'll make it to see what O'Regan will do at the NHL level, at least for the Blackhawks, but he's probably not going to be in the lineup on a regular basis. Hopefully he is playing once or twice a week when guys need a little bit of a break. And as we head into mid-December near the holidays, definitely has been helpful to be playing more games at home. We won 2 out of 3 at home on this current homestand, beat the Capitals and the Bruins, lost 1-0 in overtime to the Red Wings, so we at least got a point out of that game. Going to be going to Calgary tomorrow. And then we've got 3 games at home during the period around Christmas before finishing off the month with a couple on the road up in Canada at Ottawa and at Toronto. And after a pair of wins, we just suffered an overtime loss to St. Louis, but we are up to 15-3, so we have made some progress here in the month of November. Colton Dock is going to be out 1 to 2 months with a fractured jaw. The rookie has not done a ton for us, just 2 points in 16 games. He's only been on the ice about 9.5 minutes a game, has been a 4th-line player when he has been playing for us. So I think we're not going to delay his treatment. We're just going to put the youngster right onto the injured list. Taking a look at the standings, you can see we're kind of out of the basement with the better play of late, which is nice. Taking a look at the wild card standings, though, we are on the outside looking in of the playoffs, not surprisingly, but only 4 points away from that final playoff spot. And the Kraken, who have it right now, we do have 3 games in hand against them. Of course, there is a team, the Oilers, that has one game in hand against us that is also tied with us with 33 points. So looks like a big bunch of teams right now kind of chasing the Kraken for that final playoff spot in the West. Hopefully the fact that we are going to be at home in the United Center for the majority of our games over the remainder of the season will allow us to continue closing the gap on those teams that have opened up a decent lead on us in the early to mid stages of this season. And another game, another injury for the Blackhawks, and this one's pretty serious. Our leading goal scorer, Dylan Larkin, 23 goals in 34 games. Serious in terms of him being a critical player for us. Fortunately, it's not all that serious in terms of the injury. Sprained finger that's going to keep him out 2 to 3 weeks. Would rather we just get him back to 100% though, so we're not going to delay his treatment. We're going to put him on the IL. Certainly at this point with Doc, Hronik, and now Larkin on the injured list, we're definitely getting at the point where we're kind of thin because we are definitely missing our most dynamic goal scorer, a pretty important defender, and then a young forward. But we still don't have great depth down in the minors. Feel like a year or two from now, we're going to have some great young players who are able to contribute. But right now, we are still a little light in terms of guys who are ready to contribute at the NHL level. But we'll do the best we can to find someone who can help us a little bit, probably playing only once or twice a week, if that, over the next couple of weeks till we start getting some help back from the IL. And we are going to use this opportunity to promote the youngster Gavin Hayes. He looked like he was probably close to ready, even coming out of camp, but with some of the players that we didn't really have options to send down to the AHL without potentially losing them, we decided to let the player out of the OHL spend the beginning stages of his season in the minors. You can see he was way overmatching his competition in the ECHL, where he had 8 goals and 5 assists in 6 games. Has been somewhat more pedestrian in the AHL with 4 goals and 4 assists in 18 games. But I think that at this point it's worth seeing a little bit of what he can do up at the NHL level over the next week or two till hopefully we'll be having Mr. Larkin potentially back. And the injuries are starting to get pretty bad for the Blackhawks. Lost to Ottawa to slip back to 16-16-3. And Bo Horvat going to be out 2 to 3 months with a torn bicep. Has scored 10 goals for us as our number 2 center behind Mr. Larkin. So definitely it's going to be painful to be losing both of our top centers for some period of time, at least the next couple of weeks most likely. But I think a torn biceps is a serious enough injury that we want Horvat to just get back and be 100% when we can have him back in the lineup. But we are definitely getting thin in terms of our forward position, particularly at this point. I think for the long term, the move that we made to pick up Quinn Hughes off of waivers is the right move for us. You can see he's been pretty good, 20 points in 29 games, plus 10. Certainly expected him to be a big-time offensive contributor, and he has been. But we definitely weakened our team when we had to trade away Kara to open up the salary to bring him on board. And could definitely use some veteran wingers at this point. And as the month of January begins, was a better December for the Blackhawks. Have the record up to 17, 16, and 3. Last game of the month was yesterday on New Year's Eve, one on the road in Toronto. And we every time we want to kind of end a little losing streak, we put Skarek in goal, and he's been really good for us this year. You can see he's leading the league in goals against average and save percentage. A very small sample size, 6 games for him, 1 shutout, and a 3-0-2 record. But he has been one of the lone bright spots for us. Obviously, Larkin, another one, although he's on the IL right now. We're at least at a respectable spot in the standings right now, still on the outside looking in of the playoffs, 6 games behind the Kraken for the final wild card spot, but we have moved up pretty significantly in the wild card race over the last month or so since we got back from that miserable long road trip. As the month of January begins, still dealing with a ton of injuries. Our top 2 centers, Larkin and Horvat, both gone for a while. The rookie Colton Dock out with that fractured jaw. And then one of our top defensemen, Philip Hronik, out indefinitely still with that torn back muscle. And you can see all of these injuries have happened over the last month, and 3 of the 4 over the last week in December. So hopefully from a health perspective, the new year will bring renewed health and vigor to the Blackhawks. Taking a look at the schedule, it is a very important month for us with 8 home games and only 5 games on the road. So good opportunity for us to hopefully keep making up some ground in the standings, particularly over the last half of the month, when hopefully we will, at the very least, have Larkin back from the injured list to hopefully generate some more offense. And as this new year begins, owner's still satisfied with our performance. The fans are very pleased. Our clique is growing larger. So that is definitely not optimal. Patrick Kane and Dylan Larkin and the youngster Gavin Hayes have joined it. And you can see the number of unpopular players is growing with the additions of Skarek and O'Regan, and Holloway is outspoken. So 3 guys that we picked up through waivers or trades to make room for players we wanted to pick up on waivers are potential problems. We do have some issues in terms of team harmony at this point. It's going to be tough in the early stages of a playthrough like this, because when we look at my skills, I did have the opportunity to boost everything a little bit after both seasons, and certainly got more points after we won it all last year. But my overall ratings for a NHL general manager in terms of managing players and keeping things in line are not exceptional. So the only lever that we really have to press right now, assuming I'm not going to start trying to trade away some of those players, which is one potential option, and we've got a couple months, I think, till the trade deadline. But the other lever that we have is, investing as much as possible in team morale, which we are doing at this point. So hopefully that will help a little bit in terms of this clique. But I don't think there's any obvious solution for it with the injury issues particularly. Would certainly think that we would be sending down Hayes once we start getting back some of our frontline players, which may help a little bit. Holloway, in retrospect, is a guy I probably wish we didn't pick up on waivers, but it is what it is at this point. And Anderson Dolan, still angry at Cole Gutman, even though we let him leave as a free agent in the offseason. He's a player who hasn't been incredibly productive on the ice, 14 points in 34 games. He's +6 on the year, but he's a guy who we could potentially look to move on from also. Making decent money now at over $2 million a year, and seems to be the ringleader perhaps of some of the trouble that we've been having in the locker room and the clubhouse. And another day, another loss. We did lose 2 in a row on the road to Arizona and Carolina to begin the month. Fortunately, they were both overtime losses, so at least we scraped a point out of each of them. But Mackenzie Entwistle going to be out 2 to 3 weeks with a pinched nerve, not going to delay treatment, just going to try to get him back. Arvidsson is day-to-day, will not put him on the IL, but our front line in particular is becoming the walking wounded, and we just don't have a lot of organizational depth, and it's going to be rough here for the next week or two. Hopefully we'll have Larkin back by the middle of the month, and hopefully Entwistle will be back by the end of the month. But it's been a rough season injury-wise. Not major injuries, with the exception of Hronek and I guess Horvat to a lesser extent, but just a lot of them. And our lack of depth is definitely being tested at this point. And with the issues we're dealing with on the front line, we're actually going to put in waiver claims on a couple of players. Colin White, 27-year-old, making decent money, $2.3 million, but the last year of his contract, so it's not a long-term commitment. And then Paul Cotter, a left wing / center from Vegas, not making a ton of money, pretty close to the minimum. And I just think that opposed to some of the youngsters that we have who are just clearly not ready for the NHL, these guys, at least over the next month or two, when we are down some players and also have plenty of cap room with the fact that we've got some big salary players who are on the injured list, can hopefully give us more representative play as we try to get well above 500 and back into the playoff race. And the claims for both Colin White and Paul Cotter did go through. So that's going to allow us to send some of these guys who really should not be on an NHL roster back down to the minor leagues. Notably right now, I think we're going to send down both Lewipin as well as Reichel, neither of whom was really ready. And both of whom were getting some relatively significant playing time. But I did mess up because now we are still short a player, even with the additions of Cotter and White. So I got to bring one of those guys or somebody else back up. I had forgotten that when I got thinking about the roster, we had just put a player on the IL. So even though I wanted to get rid of a couple guys, I really only opened up one spot for those 2 players. So didn't need to send all of them down. And this will unfortunately mean that whoever we bring back up is going to be not quite at 100% for the potential game, but probably won't be playing them anyways. I'll bring Lupin back up. Don't feel great about this, but we'll see if we can get a win against the Blue Jackets. And we did, unfortunately, lose to the Blue Jackets and the newly acquired Colin White out for 10 months with a concussion. So just can't go any worse. He scored a goal for us. He was +1 on the ice for only 7 minutes, though, before that concussion. And he is gone. And his career with the Blackhawks is likely over, since he will be a free agent next year, and he's probably going to be looking for more money than we're going to want to pay him. So I think it was a good thought to try to bring him on board, but clearly it did not work out. And another forward on the injured list. So we're going to go right back to the waiver wire. It's getting kind of crazy, but are a couple decent forwards out there with Foligno and Madden. I think we'll go with the younger one, Madden, in the final year of a contract. Although Foligno, what's he making? $4 million. We could certainly fit it for now, but I think I'd rather go for the younger player, Madden. Hopefully we'll get him on the roster, and hopefully we'll have him in time for Vancouver, because we could use another body. And our claim for Madden did go through. Anderson Dolan's only at 79% fitness, so Madden's going to go right into the lineup for us. Anderson, Dolan, and the injured Arvidsson are going to be scratched as forwards. Nolan Allen, the youngster, who's been our seventh defenseman since the injury to Hronek, is going to continue to spend most of his time on the bench. And we are going to give the start today in front of the net to Mr. Skarek. He's been, as we talked about, a good luck charm for us some of these times when we've kind of needed to get things straightened out. And hopefully he can do that today and continue to move forward with his league-leading goals against average and save percentage, and he does in a 2-1 victory. So he has been a waiver claim that has worked out really well for us. Probably got to start thinking about a way to get him some more playing time, because he's now 4-0-3 for us with a 171 goals against and a 949 save percentage. Our starter, Entwistle, 14-17-2. Although his save percentage is up and his goals against average is only a little bit higher than it was a year ago when he had a really nice season for us. Part of the issue is just I don't believe we are generating nearly the offense that we did a season ago. Taking a look here as we are 40 games into the season, so almost exactly at the halfway point at the expanded standings. And yeah, we're -1 on the year, so the goal differential not nearly as strong as it was a season ago. And 113 goals in 40 games is not quite the offense that we want to be generating. The positive, though, is we're 8-4-2 at home, and with 26 games having already been played on the road, we are going to have the opportunity for a lot of home games over the last few months of the season as we are pushing for that playoff spot. And finally, some good news as we prepare for a game against New York. Dylan Larkin finally back from the IL and that injury. Hopefully he will help us generate some offense. I can see we're 19, 19, and 6, so the team is still really scuffling along, not playing the way that we want. Looking at the wild card standings, 5 points out of the final wild card spot, but would need to get by the Coyotes, who have 2 games in hand on us. So still not the best situation for the Blackhawks. The good news, though, is that in addition to having Larkin back, we're getting close to potentially having Mackenzie Entwistle back also from that pinched nerve. After that, going to be a while till we get anybody else. Probably going to be early to mid-February by the time Colton Dock is ready to play. But hopefully getting Entwistle back in the lineup shortly, in addition to Larkin, will be a good thing, and hopefully allow us to start generating some more offense and winning some more games. And with 4 Stanley Cup championships as well as a Hart Trophy, Patrick Kane was already a surefire Hall of Famer, but with a goal and an assist in our loss to the Kings yesterday, he now also has 500 career goals. So a brilliant career continues for Mr. Kane. At this point, although he did spend some time on the IL this season, 11 goals and 27 assists for 38 points in 44 games. Hopefully we can get even more out of him over the second half of the season. And the team's been struggling, 21, 22, and 7 now. Got 1 point in an overtime loss to the Kings yesterday. But Mackenzie Entwistle will be back. Just activated him from the IL. And you can see that both Anderson Dolan and Colton Dock are getting close. May have those guys back before the end of January, which would be very helpful. And 50 games into the year, ready for the All-Star game. And there are no players from your defending Stanley Cup champion Chicago Blackhawks who were named as All-Stars. So hopefully the team will use that as motivation. Clearly it's been a disappointing season, but Dylan Larkin with 27 goals and 13 assists for a team that is the defending Stanley Cup champions, 7th in the league in goals. You would think that he would have at the very least made the team. You can see 50 games into the season, 21, 22, and 7. Looking at the wild card standings for the Western Conference, only 3 points out, which is the good news. The bad news is that there's 5 teams that we'd have to hop over to get into the playoffs, and few of those teams have played a couple games less than us in the case of Nashville and Arizona. So not the situation that we'd like to be in with just 32 games left. But again, we've only had 20 home games so far, so should have 21 of our final 32 games at the United Center, which hopefully will be a really big benefit for us down the stretch. You can see it looks like in the month of February we are going to have 7 home games. The month of March even better with 11 home games in the month of March. And then 4 of our last 5 in the month of April will be at home. So although the season has definitely been disappointing in terms of the standings, when you look at the schedule and you also look at the rapidly improving health of the team with Anderson Dolan, who should go on to the active roster now. Doc will be there soon. White only played the 1 game for us. Horvat should be back before the end of the regular season. And Hronik, if we do make it to the playoffs, hopefully he'll be back at some point to help us in the playoffs. But we're getting a little healthier now. We're going to have a lot of home games in this post-All-Star break period. So hopefully that will help us really turn this season around. It's been disappointing. There's no other no other way to say it. Kane leads the team with 41 points. Larkin, we already talked about, with 27 goals, 40 points total. Both of those guys have had relatively short stints on the injured list. Forsling with 38 points as a defenseman. Arvidsson with 18 goals. Very glad to have him back. And Quinn Hughes has been pretty productive since we brought him over. Formenton with 9 goals. Kunin has been a big disappointment, at least in terms of his scoring. Just 23 points in 50 games for the guy who was our big free agent acquisition this past off season, and only +3 on the year. Hopefully we can get more of him as the season goes along. Murphy, could be nearing the end of his run in Chicago. He's -6 on the year. Looking at some of the other defensemen, Caleb Jones is -13. He's having a rough year for us. Taylor Radish -6. Those guys are kind of the worst on the team in plus-minus. The most positive on the team in plus-minus is the new addition, Quinn Hughes, Larkin, Rasmus Anderson, Alec Regula, Gustav Forsling. So some of our top defensemen have been pretty productive out there for us in terms of plus-minus, but some other guys are struggling. So the issue has really been our offense. I think when you look at our goalies, and we can look at our updated stats for both of them, Skarek still hasn't lost a game on the year. 5-0-5, 938 save percentage, 202 goals against. Very glad that we picked him up because we think he still has the ability to get better from here. Mackenzie Blackwood, again, his goals against and his save percentage are in the very same neighborhood that he was a year ago, but the 16-22-2 record is not. He can only lose 4 more games the rest of the way, and he'll have lost as many as he did all of last season. And as I said, statistically, he's playing just as well as he did a year ago. You can argue he's actually playing better in some ways. But the offense for these Blackhawks just hasn't been what we need it to be. Do have some time till the trade deadline on March 3rd, have over a month, so the whole month of February to figure out if we want to add somebody. And the thing that will give us the ability to do that is all of the injuries, because we are going to have a couple $1 million certainly on the IL, and then Hronek with his salary also of $6.6 million, not going to be coming back on in the regular season. So if we find somebody who's in the final year of their contract making some decent money that we think can help us, certainly we'll have the opportunity to do that with the fact that we've got some big money on the IL for the medium to long term. So we will focus on trying to figure all of that out in our next episode, when we try to ensure that at the very least the Blackhawks will get the opportunity to try to defend their cup in the playoffs. Would be a real disappointment if we didn't at least get back to the playoffs. Job security definitely has been trending in the wrong direction this season, but still pretty sound. Team harmony does have some issues. Probably going to need to figure out what to do to minimize the effect of that clique a little bit. Hayes probably can be sent down in the not so distant future. He hasn't done a lot in 15 games for us, playing less than 10 minutes a game as a fourth line player for the 20-year-old. Anderson Dolan is on the IL right now. Or actually, is he healthy again? Did I just bring him off of the IL? I can't even remember anymore. Okay, he's the guy that we just brought onto the active roster. So we're going to have to make a spot for Anderson Dolan. And there is an argument with the fact that he's kind of the leader of the clique and hasn't been an incredibly productive player for us. Do we think about moving on from him, just trading him away to maybe try to neuter that clique a little bit, for lack of a better expression? So we will be thinking about that between now and our next episode, and going to think about any ideas we can come up with to help ensure that the Blackhawks get back into the playoffs. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.